to the Tide Pod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD. All right. Hi, everyone. It's another episode of the Tide Pod. And today I'm joined by Nora, who is an MDA ambassador. And we're going to learn a little bit about her story with MDA and her journey and then go from there. So, Nora, it's great to have you. Thanks for joining.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I just wanted to kind of give you, a minute to introduce yourself and kind of, a little bit of the highlights of where your journey has taken you and what you're working on now.
Yep, thanks. So, yes, my name is Nora. I'm born and raised in California, still living here, married, and with two dogs. They're our babies. And I have a selenon related myopathy, a type of muscular dystrophy. It's also known as SEPN1 related myopathy. And I was diagnosed around the age of 7. I don't know the exact age, but I just say around the age of 7. And I am one of 4 siblings total that had the same diagnosis. So I had 2 older brothers and 1 older sister that also had the same diagnosis as I. I'm currently the last living one in my family with this diagnosis. My sister, she was the one that most recently passed away, which was around 5 years ago, 2019. And I did take a hiatus time to myself from life, um, to just focus on myself and be with my family. But then afterwards, when I was able to kind of I see it as like I was taking a nap from life, and then when I was able to reawaken from it, um, I came back more, I feel like, inspired to try to learn about how to be an advocate and how to get involved in advocacy, and stuff like that. And I had always done since I was a teenager. I've been involved in volunteer work with different organizations. I started when I was 17 years old for foster related local nonprofit organizations. And from then on for like senior nonprofit organizations and different things like that. So I've always had a passion for volunteer work,
Mhm.
but I didn't start volunteering for specifically neuromuscular nonprofit organizations until 20, I'm bad with dates. It was 3 years ago. three
Okay,
years
yeah.
ago. Um, and yeah, so my first um, kind of diving into it was with Muscular Dystrophy Association, applying to be an ambassador. And then I'm also wanting to, or like, got connected to volunteer with Cure CMD organization. I'm also with the Make a Wish Foundation as a volunteer and also as an alumni ambassador because I was also a Make a Wish kid. And so, yeah, that's where I am now. I'm still learning, but I'm very committed to it and wanting to do it not just for the community as a whole, for everybody, for myself, and also in honor of my siblings, because I know
Yeah.
that that's what they would want. They would be doing it too if they were still here. I know for sure, because especially my sister, she was big on advocacy and being involved. So I do have that to look up to and get strength from and motivation to do it, and it makes me happy too.
Definitely. That's a great cause, remembering them by, carrying on the work too. And you said your sister was involved with volunteering earlier on?
Yes, yeah, she wasn't with a specific organization,
Hmm.
but just in general, speaking up a lot in social media, being involved in the community, setting up meetings with local like supervisors and from the city and stuff like that,
Hmm.
advocating for disability rights in general and speaking up about it.
Yeah, that's really good. And what was it like growing up? If all four of you had the same MD, did you find that there were extra challenges, or maybe even was it easier to deal with some of it too?
I think it did make for a very different childhood that I didn't know
Hmm.
mine was so different from everyone else's because it involves a lot of um, living our lives in hospitals because when it wasn't one sibling, it was the other. And then eventually it was
Hmm.
me. So it was a lot of that. Like most of my childhood memories are like conversations with nurses, being in hospitals, playing in hospitals, and stuff like that. But I think it benefited me in the way of I think I did have it easier than them because they kind of paved the way for me. It is a very rare muscular type of dystrophy.
Hmm.
At the time, our neurologist told us that there was, besides us, only 11 other official diagnoses in the United States. That was many years ago.
Okay.
Since then, there have been a lot more. but it's still pretty rare. So, um, for example, my older brothers, they were the first ones to get diagnosed, and they had the most difficult journey going through what a lot of people go through with not getting diagnosed, being
Hmm.
told the symptoms are like anxiety or something else, and then getting misdiagnosed, and
And
then
that they
going,
were misdiagnosed to start with.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because it was so rare. It's like, oh, they probably have this and they have this. At first, they would just tell my mom, oh, like they're bad at PE because they're just lazy. They're
Mhm.
falling often because they're just lazy type of stuff.
That's
Um,
not a helpful medical advice there, I don't think.
it's not, and it's unfortunately common. I've heard stories from other people
Mhm.
having similar experiences of having to fight for a diagnosis. And that's just, it's horrible because it's like you're already experiencing these symptoms. You don't know what's wrong with yourself, and doctors don't believe you.
Right.
Um, so it was a lot of that they went through and medical trauma and all of that. So then them going through that made it easier for my sister to get diagnosed later. And then it made it easier for me to get and faster for me to get diagnosed later in life. I was the one that
What
was
did
able
they
to,
end up doing? Did they take like a blood sample or a biopsy, or how did they?
yeah, they did muscle biopsy, and that's what confirmed it. They ran a lot of tests, a lot of different tests. I don't know the names of all the tests, but I
Mhm.
do remember the muscle biopsy because the neurologist, theirs and mine, was Dr. King Engel in California. He was a pretty prominent neuromuscular doctor, and he wrote research papers of them as well as other patients, but without putting the names. And yeah, so he did write about the muscle biopsies. And at the time, since it was so rare, they called it something different. It had a different name.
Mhm.
It's this selenon myopathy, but it had a different name.
Mhm. Well, that had to be really difficult, I would imagine, to, be misdiagnosed and then to really not know what form you even had, and
Mhm.
were there, once they confirmed that's what it was, did it help with treatment? Like, were they able to sort of tailor the treatment plan to that specific type?
Um, sort of. The most they could do was kind of try to address symptoms specifically,
Mhm.
but there is no treatment for it, and it's still to this day there is no treatment.
Mhm.
But there are certain therapies and things that, when done in time, like early on, it'll just slow down the progression because it's progressive.
Mhm.
I believe that my brothers didn't have the opportunity to receive that because of how long it took to even get a
Right.
diagnosis. And even after getting a diagnosis, since the doctors didn't personally know anyone else that had it, they
Mhm.
didn't even know what to really do with the diagnosis itself before, besides
Yeah.
just knowing what it does.
Wow.
So I think that did lead to their like early deaths. It was when they were teenagers.
Mhm.
Um, it was to like breathing related problems because
Okay.
yeah, they didn't like my first brother. He didn't have the opportunity to get on a like a BiPAP or a ventilator, and the rest of us at least did. But it's
Yeah.
because doctors learned from him. So it's a lot of that of like doctors learning from the older siblings, and then I'm the youngest one out of all the siblings,
Yeah.
so I believe I got like the better and earliest treatment.
Do you feel like there was like one particular like form of treatment or one thing they did that's helped you, like reduce the symptoms or anything?
Definitely. I think two, three of the main ones. One is that I was the one that was put on a BiPAP the earliest, at the
Hmm.
earliest age. I think that helped tremendously to keep up my lung health.
Hmm.
Um, because my older sister, for example, in her late 20s, she was already at around 30% vital capacity compared to like the average person her age.
Hmm.
I'm doing better at the age that she was. I'm around 50%. So it's not great compared to someone my age, but it's a lot better.
Right, right.
So I think that helped definitely a lot. Um, Also, uh, the spinal fusion. We all got spinal fusion, but mine turned out the best because I was able to still walk after the spinal fusion and have kind of like the least side effects and symptoms from it.
Okay.
Yeah, versus they didn't have that opportunity. Some things went wrong with theirs.
Mhm.
So they did learn from them and applied it to me, and I got the benefits of it. So I I do appreciate that of my siblings, even though it was like accidental. It wasn't on purpose that the doctors were learning from them, but because
Right.
of that, I am able to have the physical abilities that I have right now to this day.
Yeah. What was the recovery process like when you went through that surgery? Was there a lot of therapy involved and things like that?
Yeah, I remember it being very long. I was around 14 years old. I was also the youngest out of all the siblings that received it.
Mhm.
So that was another plus. I was like stronger for the age. Um, I remember it was took place at the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. I remember being there for a really long time. I felt like I was living there. Um, I missed out on a whole school year of just I went MIA for my friends. I didn't even tell anyone I was having surgery, so I just kind of
Yeah, well, that's
disappeared from school.
understandable.
Yeah, yeah, I just remember I felt like the hospital was my home. It was very difficult. It was uncomfortable. It was painful. I had a full spinal fusion, so it's all the
Mm.
way up from under right where my neck starts, all the way to my where my back ends.
Uh-huh.
So it was difficult. I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to move, um, everything. And then when I was finally able to be discharged, the drive home, it was a 4-hour drive home.
Mm.
I remember it being very difficult because I was still very stiff, very in pain,
Yeah.
very just uncomfortable.
Were you able to
Um,
ride home with family or did they have to like
yeah,
transport? Yeah.
my parents and
Yeah.
siblings picked me up. They got a little van to transport me in,
Yeah.
tried to make it as comfortable as they could.
Right.
But it was still rough because every little bump on the road, I could just feel
You
it.
could feel it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely
Mhm.
relate. I had a gallbladder that went septic about 3 or 4 years ago now, and that started me on my journey to get a ventilator, and go through that whole thing. And when you're talking about the living at the hospital, that felt very familiar, and I realize now that, that's a very common thing that, for people with different MDs to actually be basically make that their residence, right? So it's really challenging, it seems like, to cope with that and to lose all of that time where you could be doing other things too, So I can't even imagine, with the spinal fusion, what that would be like. And is that basically do they completely fix the spine where it just doesn't move? Is that essentially what it does?
Yes, they're called Harrington rods, so they put Harrington rods on each side of my spine. I had scoliosis, so it
Okay.
was to fix scoliosis, but it was also a preventative measure, because since my disease is progressive, they could only assume that it was going to get worse over time, and that it could interfere with like the space I have for my lungs and my
Mhm.
other organs and stuff. So it was corrective and preventative,
Kind of a
and to
stabilizing procedure almost for the
Mhm.
whole body, really.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I'm glad they opted for a full spinal fusion, because I have met other people with similar types of muscular dystrophies as and some of them didn't they just got a section of it corrected,
Mhm.
but they're experiencing pains in other areas, like either their neck or their lower back or other parts.
And that
Um,
could even be something where they maybe have to do more procedures if they, don't do the entire spine, I would think. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like when you and your family pulled into your driveway or pulled into your home after being in, surgery recovery and everything? What did that feel like?
It just felt so different. I don't even know how to label it, but how you said of like making the hospital or home,
Mhm.
that's the home that I had for such a while that I forgot what my actual home felt like. So it did feel like I was going to a new place. It did feel like a new home. Yeah, it was just a weird feeling. Um, and I was like what do you call it? Bed rest bed
Oh
tied
yeah.
tied to my bed basically the whole time.
Yeah.
So it was also getting used to it again, but also being confined to my bedroom. Like I would just see
Hmm.
my bedroom all day, every day
You just
until it
learn
was
to
over.
basically live in that small space, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, and I did have to
Um,
push myself to walk and move around and stuff, but it was limited.
yeah. Did you have like in-home like therapists visit you to help you start walking and regaining function, or was it something you and your family just worked on?
Yeah, just me and my family.
Yeah.
Basically, my mom. My mom has always been my nurse 24/7,
Yeah.
ever since I was little, and she's the best nurse. I wouldn't want any other nurse. But yeah, it started like the nurses at the hospital taught my mom what to have me
Hmm.
do, how to do it, how much, how little of it. So at the hospital, I practiced with nurses and my mom, and then at home, she was able to take over and help me practice, and she guided me to recovery, and I did
Yeah.
do a full recovery. Mhm.
That's the best support system, it seems like, when you have a parent or two that are that helpful. I feel like they're unofficial nurses when they go through all those things, you know.
Yeah.
And do you feel that the nurses that worked with you, did they know enough about your disability and everything and what was going on to know like things to avoid, things to help you with to make it easier, or was it kind of just a learning process the whole time?
Yeah, I would say it was a learning process. I would
Mhm.
say I've never really met anyone in the healthcare industry in my area that's familiar with muscular dys or at least my type of muscular dystrophy at all. I'm used to it always being a learning process, always taking in what they tell me, but also knowing that it's not always the most appropriate thing for me.
Right.
Because what can work for someone that has another type of muscular dystrophy doesn't always work for me, or it could actually do the opposite and not be good for me.
Mhm.
So I've just learned to deal with that.
Yeah, that's always such a barrier, it seems like anymore, because I don't think I found anybody that has had a medical experience with any kind of MD and had anyone really have any training or idea what to do to handle that kind of situation. So that's something. Do you think that's something that needs to be sort of maybe have a some kind of training or something like within the nursing programs, maybe to help them become familiar with what to do maybe?
I would say definitely, yeah, because it does feel very, as a patient, very scary
Mhm.
and isolating, and causes or makes it easier to have experienced medical trauma. It would make me, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel at least a little bit better and
Mhm.
safer, knowing that they're at least somewhat familiar with it. It's like I would say impossible for them to be experts in it because it's
Right.
almost like you have to live with it or live through it or know someone that does to really grasp it as a like entirely, but
Mhm.
even knowing that they know at least the basics of it would make a great difference in a positive way.
Yeah, and it seems like some of that training could be to realize that the patients are more the experts, right? Because I mean, we do adapt and figure out exactly what we need to do to function and do things, and often we know where the pain points are and how to avoid that too. So I think that just giving us that respect and acknowledgement would be a good start too, maybe.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
I've seen both sides of it, and it is a huge difference.
Hmm.
I've been to the ER multiple times, and I've had nurses or doctors treat me like kind of like they're they know everything, but the things
Hmm.
that they're telling me, it's like my doctors have told me no, don't do that. It's like they'll want like, oh, you should your oxygen levels are fine. But it's like, well, my whole life they told me that with my muscular dystrophy, my oxygen could be totally fine, but it's my CO2 that could be the problem.
Yep.
And it's like it's kind of like we're butting heads, like
Yep.
they're not open to listening. But then I've had other doctors or nurses at hospitals um, ask me for guidance, and that feels amazing. I feel more trust towards them. Like the last time I was in the ER was in December for Christmas, and the doctor, she we were talking, and then she looked at me and told me at the end, she was like, "But you tell me if you think this is right or not because you know
Mhm.
your body better. You tell me if there's anything you think I'm missing or need because you know your body better." And I
That's
was like,
amazing.
"It did." I was like, "Oh my god, thank you."
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's more like a mutual, like back and forth, trying to figure out what works instead of just telling you what to do. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah.
made me feel a lot safer.
That's liberating. It really is,
It
having
is. It is.
doctors
I
like
wish that
that.
would happen more often, and I wish that would happen to other people too.
Yeah. I mean, me too. I think it would change, so much of the experience.
Mhm.
As far as like, have you had any kind of like pain management like strategies, or what has your approach been over the years, dealing with different, muscle aches or whatever else may have come up?
So far, what it's progressive, so I know that I'll need to bump it up over time.
Hmm.
But so far, what helps, ever since I was a teenager, I practiced meditation, my own way of meditation. I've learned throughout the years different types and different ways.
Hmm.
And there's a lot that types that don't work for me. Like I'm not, it's not easy for me to visualize. So I know the visualization types of meditations don't work for me. So I
Hmm.
think I've kind of developed my own way, grabbing tips and tricks from different places.
Yeah.
Um, and mine is more like it helps me disassociate from my body. So that's been pretty much my coping mechanism,
Mhm.
disassociating from the pain, trying natural things while they work, because I know I'll need medication or other types of eventually when
Right.
it's not working for now. Um, I know that things that increase my dopamine and just like good feel good chemicals help a lot, because
Mhm.
I know that when I'm distracted with something really fun that takes my focus, or when I'm like with family or friends and I feel just the love in the air type of
Yeah.
thing, and my pain is there, but it's not in the forefront. So to me, that is almost like medicating myself. So I think it's also one of the many reasons of why I volunteer a lot,
Mhm.
because you meet a lot of people and a lot of really good people that make you feel good. Like it's just good energy, and
Yeah.
it helps me to forget how my pain is. And I notice that it's that because I know that when I leave or when I go home or when I go to bed, when everything is still and there's no distractions, it just hits me like I got run
It
over by a
floods
truck.
back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
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 So
No,
far.
that's
Yeah.
awesome though that you're able to find, kind of that connection, with people and working with nonprofits and helping through volunteering, is I think that's really a powerful thing to sort of push back those, pains and everything that are going on. As far as like the dissociation thing, like how do you do that? Like what's kind of your procedure with that?
Through meditation, and I feel like since I had such a long journey with finding the right one that works for me, I feel like it
Mhm.
would be the same with anyone else.
Yeah.
So I would say for anyone wanting to try it, it's reading about the different types of meditation
Mhm.
and trying them all, because that's the only way to know which one works.
Which one? Yeah.
And when you feel like you're able to get yourself in a state of stillness, is how I
Hmm.
describe it, just like the thoughts are blank and everything is still. That's the one. And it's almost like a little world you put yourself into, and
Hmm.
continuously going into that little world makes it easier to the point where you could do it at any time and any moment around anybody. And then I feel like it just happens naturally. Like my brain it's an on and off switch eventually with practice.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that there's so much anxiety, that comes with physical disabilities that people don't necessarily know about, So I think that's so great that, you're basically allowing yourself the space to try different, meditation types and see what feels good and go from there. I think it's almost like you're running an experiment with yourself in a way, until you find that right balance.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually didn't really know that that's what I was doing. Like, I did a little, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I didn't know that there were so many different types of meditations, until I started seeing a therapist. And
Yeah.
she taught me some meditations, and I was like, well, that doesn't really work, but this is what I've done. And she's like, well, that is like a type of meditation, sort of like you're taking yourself
Okay.
out into a new, different world. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. And then she's the one that brought it to my attention of like,
Mhm.
you've been disassociating all these years from your pain. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So
So
it's a
that's
lot
what
of
you call it,
realization.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah.
realization. So therapy, I think, has also helped a lot.
What was your
And
journey like with that to finding a therapist that was good? Did you have to go through multiple places to try to find one that worked, or what was that like?
I first started seeing a therapist when I was a child. My mom asked for me to see a therapist,
Hmm.
and it was kind of it got me into knowing what therapy was and what it was like, but I feel like as a child, I was pretty closed off, so
Hmm.
neither gained nor lost anything from that experience. And then once I graduated high school, I actually went into the field of psychology and sociology. So I've
Okay.
always kind of like been in that world, in that area, and always been open to it. And then when I was finally wanting to go into therapy. I got guidance from my nutritionist. She kind of helped me motivate myself to actually go for it, because I think a lot of us, not all of us, but we kind of put a mental block in front of us. It's a common misconception to think that you have to be underwater to seek help, to seek a therapist. Like you have to be just like in a hole or just feeling horrible. But it's no, we can do it even when we feel great, because it can at least help us improve or maintain that greatness. Those are the thoughts that got me to finally make the call. my first therapist. It was great, but he was new, like recently, freshly a therapist. And I could kind of tell. I think since I studied it and I had a bachelor's, I felt like we were almost on the same level.
Yeah.
And I could tell, but I was like, I I also have a bad habit of not wanting to hurt people's feelings or make people feel bad. And
Hmm.
in my head, I thought that if I said I didn't want to see him anymore, I'm going to make him feel bad.
Right.
Yeah, and I told my nutritionist that because she was also like my therapist, and she helped me be like, no, like you're not supposed to feel that way. Like we just weren't a match. I was telling her
Yeah.
like I
And
leave the
that's okay,
session.
right? Like it's not good or bad.
Yeah,
It's just not always the right fit. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, I leave the session feeling anxious. Like I always feel like
Hmm.
my heart is racing. She's like, that's not normal. You're not supposed to feel that.
That's the opposite of what you should be feeling, probably.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was just uncomfortable, but I thought I could just if I go long enough, it'll get better, but I'm
Yeah.
glad she told me it's not gonna get better. You need to just change therapists. I did. I went with the one she recommended, and
Hmm.
I've been with her ever since. I think we're on like 5 or 4 years now.
Wow, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and it's great. I love her. I don't feel anxious
Yeah.
afterwards. And yeah, everything's good.
I think that's pretty cool too, how the nutritionist was almost a therapist in a way and like helping you to find, the right other therapist to work with you. That
Yeah.
seems like it's rare. I think I've probably tried three or four now at this point since my whole gallbladder incident, and like you said, I think it's so good to look for one when you're not at rock bottom, when you're not completely overwhelmed, because, then you can probably be much more ready, when things happen like, and overload you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I feel like, because I've for all these years, I've consistently been seeing her every week, once a week. Even when I don't have anything to talk about, we always find
Hmm.
something to talk about. Sometimes she's talking to me about her things, like her dogs, her just random things. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
talking just about my dogs, like nothing. People also think that every session has to be just like emotional and heart wrenching, and just like you're opening up about your childhood and all that.
Yeah.
But no, because also casual conversations gives me practice. It helps me grow. It helps me socialize,
Yeah.
which is also important when dealing with a chronic illness. Sometimes we isolate ourselves, but we're
Hmm.
humans and we need that socialization.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like your studies with psychology and everything kind of helped you as well with that whole aspect of fighting isolation and everything?
I think definitely, definitely. To this day, I still have all my textbooks from school, and I still stay updated online. I'm still reading because I went into both. I got a bachelor's in psychology and
Hmm.
sociology because I just really love both fields. So in sociology, I learned how to like interpret research papers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So that's still a skill that I use to this day, and it helps with staying up to date with psychology and research studies with that, but
Hmm.
also with in the muscular dystrophy world and with my disease specifically, staying up to date with that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's helped in many ways. It's had me be more open minded and also helped me in my relationships and the way that I lead my life. Like I've always
Yeah.
wanted to have a positive life, avoid drama, avoid like negative relationships or toxic relationships as much as possible.
Hmm.
And I think it really helped me with that.
That's a big deal, I think, knowing when to, kind of put those boundaries in place and realize that, you don't have to work or be around environments that do those kinds of negative adverse effects, so that's really cool. Did you ever think about going into research with like psychology, or was it more something you realized that you would just want for knowledge and maybe not necessarily a career? Like what did that experience, what was that like?
I did want it, I went into it wanting it to be a career.
Uh-huh.
My ultimate goal was to either be a community college counselor, because I started in community college,
Hmm.
and I've always been very like with the volunteer work I was doing before. It was very community driven, especially with like the young teenage community or just young adults and
Hmm.
also the Latino community and minorities. So that's where I noticed I just wanted to help and make a difference, and that's where I felt like I would be able to the most.
Hmm.
But I was between that and also just being a psychologist, like a therapist. Um, So those were my two main goals. And I was able to get my associates, and then I transferred to university. I got my bachelor's. I also did a concentration in juvenile delinquency, because also volunteering while I was in college and high school, for foster child organizations.
Oh, okay.
It made
Yeah.
me have like a soft spot also for that, and knowing that, um, just everything associated with their hardships.
Hmm.
So it was a lot of that. But uh, like because of my health and just how like you said, how time consuming it really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Um, and when I'm studying or like doing and working, it doesn't offer those feel good chemicals like dopamine and all that that
Right.
other things do. So my pain levels are a little bit higher. And it's just difficult to maintain someone
Hmm.
else's schedule and work under someone else's schedule because my body doesn't have a schedule. My body
It's
has a mind of
unpredictable,
its
right? You
own.
don't really always know.
It
Yeah.
has a mind of its own. And my doctor suggested me that it just wasn't a good idea for me to work. Like part time would already be pushing it. Full
Yeah.
time would be a no. And I realized that I wouldn't, I think I wouldn't be able to have the health that I have now if
Yeah.
I would have worked because I wouldn't have had the time to work on myself and to really take care of myself.
Right. And it was there maybe some sense of extra pressure too to actually meet, like the quote unquote standard like production in a job like that or be able to fulfill, all the tasks that you needed. It just seems like that's such a challenge, as you go forward with the progression.
Mhm. Yeah, it would have been too much, and I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that my specific muscular dystrophy is that, we lack a protein and that protects our cells from oxidative stress,
Hmm.
and that's always, been on my mind in the way that I lead my life, is like, okay, like, I have to remember I'm not protected like the average person from oxidative stress,
Yeah.
and oxidative stress is not just, like, the stress of work, but it could be, so I'm like, I need to just, and that's why I got really into meditation and this whole like live a happy life, be loving to each other and all that because
Hmm.
and like be on good terms. Well, I'm accepting of all religions, but I'm Catholic, so I've always also had that of like being in good terms with God, like like me myself,
Yeah.
and all that like positivity stuff. Because I do feel that it helps my health and my cells
Absolutely.
and protects when I'm able to protect it, helps protect it. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that you have such a like a well-rounded approach to everything, right? Like you're not only implementing, like your religious, practices and everything, but it's what you learn with your education and degrees, and then like, from visiting with your therapist, it's just a really well-rounded, almost it almost seems like a holistic type thing, right? Like you're making everything work towards, helping you to navigate life, with your form of MD and everything. That seems, I think it's really hard to find for many of us in the community. So, for me, I think that's really, motivation to keep seeking that out for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and I completely, do see that in the community, like, it's just so many things going on in our lives, and we all have different resources, and we're all
Hmm.
exposed to different things in our lives, that we just it's almost a luxury to be able to achieve a life of, like, feeling like we have a lot of positivity and love in our lives,
Yeah.
and I feel like it pushed what pushed me the most to it is maybe trauma, like all the
Hmm.
childhood and lifelong trauma I endured from just seeing so many things in the medical world, in my family, with my siblings.
Right.
And I was always a very like quiet and observant type of child.
Hmm.
So I think I did a lot of self reflecting and also being bedridden for so many days and hours. It led for a lot
Forces
of
you to
self
think, right?
reflecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does
Yeah.
force me to think and forces me to be with myself and forces me to have to be happy with myself. I have no
Yeah.
choice. People
It's
have
not the
distractions.
Yeah, it's not the best way to, sort of reach that self-awareness and acceptance, I don't think. But, if there's a silver lining to it, maybe that's it, maybe finding that place where you're centered and you're able to process it more. It just seems, you know, y- it forces you into that space, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that, yeah, like you said, it is a silver lining, and it's a tough life that we have, but at least I do believe that it makes us a lot more compassionate, a lot more
Hmm.
empathetic, a lot more loving, a lot more understanding. Like
At
my
a
friend,
young age too, huh?
yes, at a very young age. So it's
Yeah.
good for us to have those qualities because not everyone has those qualities.
They're
Um,
needed for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it probably does. I mean, it's a strength that we can bring to the table kind of wherever we're involved with anything,
Mhm.
from advocacy, whatever our passion or our pathway is, we can bring, those tools with us, I think. And that helps so much.
Yes, I do think
Yeah.
that we have so much good to offer.
Yeah.
Like our community as a whole, I've loved being a part of it. I've loved everyone that I've met, because everyone is just in their own ways and their own stories and their own paths.
Yeah.
That we
Unique
share.
humans regardless, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, it's just it's great, and we're we're a great team.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've just kind of gotten into the social media world with MD and advocacy and everything in the last 2, 3 years, and it's already amazed me how reachable everyone is and how much they're willing to share and help, navigate different things, and just knowing that there's other people that relate, to what we've dealt with, and you're right, that isolationist thing. I know I did it some, and I know there's many others probably with different MDs doing it, and that's hard to break out of, I feel like, at least in my experience. But
Mhm.
now finding this community, I think it's a way to get past that. And then once you're beyond childhood, like we're still, I mean, we're adults living lives and wanting to do things that adults, are doing. So I think that's something else we bring, that's sharing our experiences, and, hopefully anyone else growing up that is going through anything similar can look to that and realize, you can live a really positive, overall life, and be passionate and do things you want to do.
I completely agree. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, we bring a lot to the table, in both worlds, in the world of
Yeah.
disabilities and also outside. We have so much information to give to people that don't fully understand disabilities or don't know anyone personally that's disabled that they can
Mhm.
learn from. We have a lot to share and a lot of um, like are the things that we've come up with about life and being just good humans. I feel like they could learn a lot from us. And
Definitely.
also, within the disability community, it's, yeah, being there for each other, offering support for each other, knowing that we can understand each other. Some people can't understand why it's so hard to not self isolate. Well, everyone in the disability community can understand that. I feel like, because I think we've all dealt with it to a certain extent, in our lives. Some still are, from some for years, some for weeks or months. But we
Yeah.
all can at least understand and not judge and know that, it's hard for everybody in different ways. And for those of us that are able to have, the opportunity to share stories, or I think it does benefit a lot of people. I always thought that, like, I spent so much of my life trying to like be normal, or like
Mhm.
not like have people know what's going on with my disability, because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want
Mm.
people feeling sorry for me. I didn't want to think that people are only my friends because they feel bad for me. Like, I wanted to push away from all of that. So I tried so hard to just hide it pretty much.
Yeah.
And even when there's obvious signs to me that, physical signs that I do have a disability, but I just would ignore it. Like, it's not there, I can't see it.
It's amazing
um,
how we're able to downplay things like that.
yeah, and my goal was to just continue like that my whole life. My
Yeah.
goal was to, I never thought about like getting into advocacy, sharing my story. It's like, yes, I'm always going to volunteer, but more of like online, on the download type of thing, or just
Mm.
being private with organizations, not like this, like doing podcasts or doing conferences, public speaking. I think that that would be my thing.
Yeah.
Also, even with friends and family, I have friends of many years that I've never told. So I just thought that was my life and my future.
Hmm.
If it wasn't for I think almost feeling like my siblings somehow told me to do this. And I think maybe even like signs from God telling me to do this because I got inspired somewhere, somehow, in the middle of the night. So it wasn't something that I was planning. It was just
Uh-huh.
an inspiration that came to me. And I feel like when we get thoughts like that, I would like to believe that it's someone coming to us and telling us, like guiding us.
There for a
Um,
reason, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
it was that, and then, I kept getting pushing myself into this because so I don't know if it's noticeable right now that, like, I'm really anxious just talking and sharing my story.
Yeah, you
Um,
don't notice it at all from the outside.
my heart is, like, coming off my chest, but it's just how I am, like, it might not be noticeable on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like, I push myself a lot to do this.
Yeah.
And, my motivation is my siblings, um, the struggles that they went to through, um, the benefits that I received because of their struggles, like them paving the way for me,
Yeah.
and wanting to do that for other people as well. Because I've along the way since starting advocacy, I've met other people that have shared similar stories to what my mom and my siblings went through in their journey. And I'm like, I can't believe we're in 2025 and this is still happening. Like
Exactly.
that just gives
Yeah.
me the drive to want to do this more, share my story more, get the word out there as much as I can.
Yeah.
Not because it's easy for me. I'm still worried that friends and family are gonna like treat me differently or have sympathy and stuff. So there's a
Right.
lot holding me back. But what pushes me forward is more valuable, and
Well,
it's
and
what I
it's
focus on.
stronger. Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
definitely, like I really relate to you on the butterflies and like the anxieties of, being in front of, whatever whoever the audience is, and trying to sort of, be that I hate to say role model, but just be that picture of, like we're trying to push the boundaries and improve things when we're still kind of like, not maybe not so comfortable with a lot of it. But yeah, I just think that in the end, that's if we can overcome those anxieties, like it feels like it's so much better knowing that we're hopefully helping, people along the way. So I think that makes it somehow more doable. And then, like you having that um, your siblings, ahead of you going through those things and then, just receiving signs that that's kind of what you're meant to do, even though you didn't really think that maybe going when you were younger. I know I sure didn't. And I definitely tried to downplay, things like using a wheelchair and falling more often and things. And you're like, how can I even downplay that because it's so obvious to everybody else?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think if we can continue to do this kind of thing and realize that, we aren't necessarily we don't have to worry about people judging us or anything like that, because we know that it's the right thing to do. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So that
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense what you're saying there for sure. Yeah, I did want to ask you a little bit about like hobbies, things maybe outside of MD, that you use to kind of escape, everything. And are there particular areas you like to channel, or you just kind of have that positive feeling you just didn't really enjoy a lot?
I feel like I'm all over the place with hobbies. I
Yeah.
like to pick up anything. I like to learn new things. My first hobby that I can remember, I think, has been drawing, because my older siblings drew as well. Specifically, one of my older sister that also had muscular dystrophy. She was the most artistic in the family. But all of my other siblings, and I have another sister that she doesn't have muscular dystrophy. And everyone drew, so they all taught me. So but I followed like consistently drawing. So that did become one of my escapes because I would draw while in the hospital. I would draw while just like not feeling good.
Hmm.
It was my escape through art. It transitioned from drawing on paper with pencil to painting, um, and then eventually to graphic design. I did
Oh,
draw on the
nice.
computer. I liked um, like for free for friends and family making
Hmm.
logos, even if it was like fake logos. It's like, one day you should have this business. Let me
Yeah,
make you a logo for it. Like I
yeah.
just loved learning things, um, to help others, to help myself, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. And I also, photography was and still is a big hobby for me. I've
Hmm.
loved it my whole life. Um, uh, Others, like I like cooking and baking. I like dogs and I like dog training. I like learning about the psychology of the dog brain and how to like to me it's so interesting and fascinating the tricks that
Yeah.
they're able to learn and how we can communicate with them. So I do some little experiments, like psychology experiments with my dogs.
I need to
And
dig into those with my dog a little bit, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What all did you like painting or drawing? Was there specific things or was it just kind of everything around you maybe you like to draw?
At first, it was what like my siblings taught me how to draw. So
Mhm.
it was things like nature, flowers, plants,
Yeah.
faces, kind of anime style faces or cartoony
Mm-hmm.
type faces, nothing realistic. And then when I was in college, I took art class, like a drawing
Hmm.
class, and there I learned how to draw like a bigger variety of things.
Hmm.
So that's when I expanded to more realistic my attempt at realistic face drawings and portraits.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Have you had to adapt your like the way you're able to do those things over time with like progression of the MD at all, or are you still able to do kind of all of those currently?
I'm able to do them. I do know that painting is a little bit more. I really have to have the physical energy for it, just because it involves more like getting getting up to get different tools and setting up a whole thing versus drawing on a pencil and paper. I could do it anywhere.
Hmm.
I just need two things, and I don't have to get up to get more things or to clean
Yeah.
up things.
Yeah, painting
Um,
that's a little bit more dangerous too. I found always that like I couldn't keep my wrist or my forearm from like rubbing across the canvas as I was trying to paint, and then it was like, well, that's I might as well not do that because it's, going to make it messy.
Yeah, yeah, it does
Yeah.
get messy, and then a lot of like, yeah, like to me, I'm at the point where getting up off the couch requires so much energy that
Hmm.
I try to find the things that I can do of just like, okay, I'm gonna sit once, and I'm gonna try to like for as long as I can throughout the day, not
Hmm.
get up because of the amount of energy it requires. So yeah, the last time I painted, I had to get up so many times because I kept forgetting things, forgetting types of brushes, needing
Yeah.
more water, needing clean water, needed like if I spill something on myself, needed to clean it up because I don't want it to get stained.
Right.
It's just so much. And there is some,
Exhausting.
yeah, it's exhausting, and there is some sadness to it that I think people that don't experience it don't really understand or don't think about of like how we um what seems like something really easy to do isn't, and a
Yeah.
lot of like the spoon theory, a lot of spoons are required.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the tiniest little things too. Maybe like, for example, like maybe one day you can't reach the extra inch that you could the day before, and it's kind of random too, from my experience. Like you go through these sort of like transition points where you lose parts of you as you're going along, and so you have to reinvent, yourself in a way. And I don't know, is that kind of your experience too with it?
Yeah, definitely. I think you worded it really well too, like reinventing ourselves, finding ourselves and then refinding
Mhm.
ourselves and refinding ourselves. It's like a loophole of just
Yeah.
cycle of doing that, and it's we just have to stick to it and do the best that we can.
Yeah.
That's what I've done, and I've learned to let go. I think it's really important for our mental health, especially to be fluid, to let
Yeah,
go,
that's a good way to
to
put
go
it.
with the flow. Yeah, of we can't expect to be the same person. We can't be the same person, and that's okay because um, it's a good opportunity to know
Yeah.
that we can change who we are at any point. We can adapt. We can be resilient. We can. I can't
Yeah.
paint anymore, but I can pick up other hobbies. I can like find and learn something new that I might have not if I continued painting because it would have taken up time. So that's
Yeah.
trying to look on the bright side of it. Um, Music has also been something that was my escape ever since I was little. My
I was
parents
going to
got me
ask
like
you
those
about
little,
that.
yeah, my parents got me like a little those toy pianos that
Oh,
are
yeah, yeah.
like, yeah, and I just loved it. And in college, I also wanted to like get better at it than
Hmm.
the ones that I knew, the little sheet like the kids music ones.
Yeah.
Um, and I would also before taking classes. Well, I took one class in college, but before that, it was a lot of YouTube videos, but I never knew how to read notes. so it was limited. So it was very freeing and a really
Hmm.
good escape to really get into it. Learning notes because I was able to like then play pretty much any song that I
Yeah,
could find sheets for. So that one class really helped a lot. And it's pretty accessible to do. Like my mom got me the keyboard, I think at a yard sale that I'm able to
yeah.
have in my house. And it's like the portable kind, so I'm able to put it anywhere.
That's cool. You have all of the different creative outlets, as you've gone along too. I think that's the creativity thing. I did a guest blog actually on that a few weeks ago, and I was like, I want to get in touch with this a little bit more because over the years with, jobs and all the medical needs, I kind of lost a lot of that, creative. It is an escape. It really is, and now it's like, oh, you can try like free form poetry, or you can maybe work with another artist and describe like maybe a vision you have for a painting, and then they interpret it and make something too. I think it's really cool to be able to pull back and be like, I can still be creative even though I'm not necessarily the one, doing it completely by myself, but you can still have that a little bit of that experience, I think.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I think hobbies and, like you said, creative outlets are super important for
yeah.
everyone in general, but I think especially for anyone with a chronic illness,
Hmm.
because it's kind of like that. Like in psychology, we learned the Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
triangle, and it's like one of them is that we need to be like fully fulfilled mentally.
Yeah,
We need
yeah.
goals, and we need to feel accomplished, and we need to feel like success or a feeling of success. And if we
Hmm.
can't do that the conventional way, like other people can, through jobs or through like physical accomplishments, well, we are able to get that same feeling and sense through little projects, through art projects, through just
Yeah.
drawing something. Like our brain, when we finish it, it does get the same feeling.
It's rewarding. Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like people with MD or I mean just yourself, do you feel like you kind of maybe fulfilled some of the higher levels like first and then you had to go back down? Because I've found myself wondering about that hierarchy, like, some of the basic needs I feel like are the hardest for us and we're able to hit the higher ones sooner. And it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's interesting how that works. That like we start, I feel like mine is all over the place.
Mhm.
I don't even know where I started, but I know it wasn't in order.
Just
And I
jumping
know,
around. Yeah.
yeah, and I know it's continuously changing. So just because I achieved one, it doesn't stay that way. Sometimes I don't have it, and then I have to eventually find it again.
Hmm.
So it is constantly changing. It is always a work in progress. But I guess
Yeah.
keeps me on my toes.
What would you say is the level that you're currently working on the most? Like, is there one or do you think of it in terms of that?
I think the main one and the one that I think all of us probably struggle with is the health one.
Hmm.
There's no security in the health aspect
Right.
of it. It's
And
like,
that's presented as kind of one of the first ones you have to have done before you can move to the
yes,
others. And that's the wrong way to look at it, I think now.
yeah, it's one of the like considered basic needs.
Yeah.
That it's yeah, it's crazy to think about because people that don't have diseases or chronic illnesses, it's like to them that's
Yeah.
already an automatic check, like check, I
Yeah.
got it. Roof over
And
the
it's
heads.
it's like that with with everything, like with like relationships, and do I have a degree and a steady job and a family? Like you can just see people that aren't necessarily familiar with MD or disability, just like going through like, yep, I got all that covered. And now I can start doing the creative stuff, or now I can be enlightened or something. But for us,
Mhm.
it's like, do you feel like the levels almost are all even? Like you can't really say that one is more important or that one should come before the other. I mean, just talking with you now, I'm realizing one doesn't necessarily have more importance than the other in a sense.
I agree. I don't think that, excuse me, I
Hmm.
don't think that one is more important than the other because of the fact that we're not all blessed with the ability to tackle that pyramid in order. So
Yeah,
I think that that shows that it's okay, like to start in the middle or start at the top or to not have any of them at all and then
yeah,
have them and then not have them. Like it's just as long as we're um content with ourselves.
You almost need to
I don't.
attack it with more of an open mind. And I think that we're really suited well to that. And I'm thinking, that people that don't necessarily, maybe they're going through other problems, other issues, that if if we can kind of share that same thinking that it's okay, you're not going to be judged if you start on the top level,
Mhm.
and work your way down, or however you decide you need to do it. So I think that's really cool to think about. I'm kind of it's expanding my thought process a little bit right now, actually. So
Mhm.
that's pretty awesome.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great that out of that's why it's so good to have these conversations. If we can
Yeah.
find inspiration, we can learn to look at things in a new way, a
Different,
different way,
yeah,
a different
differently.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really cool. Yeah, well, I could talk about so many other things like that, but I know, I try to keep these an hour or less just because I find I don't know about you, but Zoom meetings that go beyond an hour start to burn my eyes a little bit.
Oh,
But but
yeah.
no, if it's been great visiting with you, and I'd love to maybe have a future conversation, about something specific if it feels right as we go along. So as an MD ambassador, do you find that you're attending any of the meetings, or do you feel like you have to do virtually for the most part on those?
Yeah, I do mainly virtual. The only in-person
Yeah.
one that I did was on the Hill Day in DC. And then the other
Were you
ones,
able to attend this year on that?
yeah, I went
Yeah.
last year in September.
Okay.
And then this year I will most likely be there as well.
Yeah.
And then the virtual ones, I've only been able to attend one
Hmm.
because the other one's also either scheduling issues because I'm on PST time and they do
Oh,
it
yep.
on like
Yep.
Eastern time. So it's just
That's a
it's
constant challenge, I feel like these days.
yeah, or
Yeah.
sometimes I'm sick, sometimes I just don't feel well, so
All kinds of
I've
variables
learned to be
coming
okay
in.
with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that acceptance is big, but since I originally was in New Mexico and moved out, I'm in the Tennessee area now, so I'm eyeing some conferences on the East Coast, thinking, hey, maybe it's possible now, so that maybe the next on the Hill event will be something I can hop onto and meet some of our team in person, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's a great experience, and I think you and anyone else that's interested in it would really like it. I'm really, really glad that I took just the leap of faith in myself because
Yeah,
it was my first, I feel like, big dive into advocacy. Before then, I had only done one like in-person public speaking conference, medical conference. So that one was really scary for
it can
me.
feel daunting, right? Like the what you have to do. Yeah,
Yeah, I was so scared. So like I wrote a little like bio about my like introduction about myself, like, hi, my name is Nora, this and this.
yeah,
The most basic thing, but I had to make sure to write it and I kept repeating it, practicing it because I'm like, I'm
yeah.
gonna forget my name.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Great. Well, it's been really nice talking with you, Nora, and I'll definitely put your information for people to follow. What's the best way for people to interact and engage with you? Is it through Instagram, or do you have other areas you'd like to share?
Yeah, mainly Instagram. And I do have my Linktree thing on Instagram, but it just
Yeah.
links to that and I like other profiles, but I spend most of my time there on Instagram.
Yeah.